Hello and welcome to another episode of Film Valor. We've been getting a lot of questions about our VFX that we used in our newest short, Star Wars Battle Royale, which we're very, very excited about. If you guys haven't seen the short film yet, it took a lot of time and effort and planning. We wanted today to sort of give back to the community that had all these great tutorials on here and sort of add in our own, our own lessons to give to people who are trying to go out and make their own films, especially with these VFX. So today we're just going to be looking at the shot of Tom before he's blasting away. So let's look right at the point where the blaster is about to fire. That seems to be roughly here before it starts motion blurring. Layer, new, solid. Make sure that this solid is white. That's important. This is going to be the core of the blaster. We're going to go right into transform here. Turn down the opacity so we can see what we're doing. Now, just make sure you have this pen tool selected. You could be on something else. Make sure you grab that pen tool. And we're going to be drawing what is basically the initial beam of the laser. So let's go in and draw our 4 points. 1, 2, 3, 4. And connect it back. Now you see that you have this mask menu that's popped up. First of all, before we get into that, make sure you bring your opacity back to 100. Now go over to the mask menu, click that down, and click on mask path. Okay, now we're going to start to keyframe this blaster fire. The best way to think about a blaster, especially these Star Wars kinds of blasters, it's not a circle, it's not an orb that flies, because that doesn't really work visually. It seems like it could, but it doesn't. And it took a lot of trial and error actually for us to figure out that doesn't work. One of the things that you're really looking to try to do is you're sort of looking to try to stretch the beam. Stretch the beam as much as you can in what we call like a reverse triangle, basically. The triangle is emitting from the weapon. Obviously, the angle here matters and everything else. It's sort of nice that we're dealing with a horizontal shot, so to speak. We're not dealing with something that's coming towards us. Those types of shots are a little bit harder. But generally speaking, coming towards the camera, firing away from the weapon, you have that sort of, that cone that's being created, which is what we're looking for. Okay, so let's go inside of here and start moving this blaster fire. So first of all, this is going to be our first point on the timeline. We're then going to move ahead to the next moment. Okay, from here now we see that our weapon has fired. So generally speaking, we're kind of still making the weapon emit from the same place, creating that laser blast out this way. Generally, Star Wars blasters sort of stretch across space. You can see these in the movies. They start small, they stretch out, and then they sort of reach each other at the end. Saying, let's say this is point A and point B. They sort of catch up at the end. So let's move ahead another second. Now, although this seems like it would be awfully fast, basically this thing would already be nearly across the screen. And sometimes this takes some trial and error to see what really works best. So now let's move ahead another second, and now basically this thing would be gone. Now again, like we said, this blaster movement, is whatever looks best. You have to go in and sort of see, what works, why does it work the way that it does, etc. Is this as fast as I want it to be? Do I want it to be slower? Those types of things are ultimately up to the person creating the blaster fire. I think this generally looks good. Now, what I've also done here is I've taken my solid and I've made so that it does not appear prior to the frames I want it in. I did that by just dragging the solid to this point and making it appear. So now, from here, we're going to collapse these frames. We're going to go to Layer, New, Solid, and we're going to create a black layer. Okay? Now this black layer goes underneath, and you can see it's just showing the animation. As this is coming through the air here, we can see that basically we've isolated the effect. That's gonna matter more in just a minute. But for now, let's get the feathering right on the image. So we're gonna go over here, select this, and we're gonna just do it the simple way. We're gonna hit duplicate 1, 2, 3 times for a total of four layers here. Okay, so let's go into our first top one, go to masks, drop those menus down, let's go to feather. Now we're gonna just type in 3, hit return. The next mask, feather, let's type in 10. Okay, mask, feather, let's type in 30. Mask, feather, and let's say 110. Now just go up here and you'll see your different compositions, your solids and everything else. You're going to select your original footage and you're going to hit new comp from selection. Okay, so now that we have our footage opened up again, we're going to take our comp and we're going to just drag it right on top. We can see that we have our blaster firing here. Make sure you have this layer with the laser selected. Go to layer, blending mode, and screen. And now you can see that you have your laser firing right out of the gun over here. Next we're going to go to effect, color correction, color balance. Make sure you have preserve luminosity on. And you can just start to mess with these things here, especially with the reds. If that's the type of color you're going for. Obviously, if you want a green laser, you can do that. It starts to get a little bit hokey looking, but you know, these various reds will sort of give you the desired effect that you want. So now the other effect that we did was we were able to put a little bit of light on the actor's face digitally here when this blaster was firing. And it's actually pretty simple to do that. Just go to layer, new, solid, white. We're going to click on the pen tool, drop the opacity of that so we can see through. And essentially the idea here is to draw in where the light would be hitting your actor from the blaster. Accuracy is not as critical here as just getting it to be realistic, getting it to cover the space, etc. Okay, so now that we've closed that off, obviously we have this ridiculous shape. What we're going to do is go into the mask and we're going to feather it. And we went to 79, okay, and we're going to turn down the opacity as well. Let's go to about 51%. Okay, so starting from right here, we're going to click on mask path, mask opacity, and we're going to go right to the frame rate before Tom's firing it here. We're going to go to 0%. Then we're going to jump ahead, go up to, let's say 48%, and we're going to jump back down to 30%, one frame ahead, and then we'll be 0. Now the reason why you don't want to just scroll right down to 0% over here is that what After Effects is going to do is going to tween the frames in between. So basically if I set it from 0 and then I set it to 100, it's going to go from 0 to 100 the entire time. Now that doesn't really work because this blast is only happening in the matter of a millisecond here. So we just want it to flash on screen like that. Now generally that works, but trial and error and finding, you know, the levels of the blast that you want it to, you know, what you want it to look like, how powerful you want the blast to be, how much you want that opacity there, and everything else. Now, general rule of thumb is, you know, sort of dropping the general opacity on this could work. It's getting a little bit more realistic. Again, all of this is just trial and error and trying to figure out what sort of subtle lighting effects you can put in here to make things look a little bit more realistic. Now, I like this. I think it's workable. Most of the time, the keyword is subtlety, trying to keep things realistic and fluid, and also try not to draw attention to the fact that this is an effect, but that it could have been created live action. You notice here that this is white, and we really want it to be red. like the color of the laser. So that's pretty easy to do. We just grab that light layer here that we have on Tom's face. We go to Effect, we go to Color Correction, and we go to Tint. And we grab the map to white. And we just throw it over to basically like a lighter color red. It's essentially what we're looking for. One that works. But that just sort of adds that one extra layer of realism onto the shot, that when this gun would be fired, it would create lighting on the performer's face. Okay guys, we hope you liked our blaster tutorial. Obviously layers and levels of these different things create the best effects, and it's really up to you to what you think works best for your blasters and your films. We hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and check out Film Valor every week for various things, including tutorials, also discussions on the film industry, original short films, and everything else. We hope you've enjoyed Film Valor as much as we've enjoyed making it for you guys. And we hope you tune in next time. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. It does mean a lot to us. Thank you guys. Comment below if you thought of any other ideas and also what your thoughts are on this. Thanks.